Keir Starmer's recent parliamentary performance exposed everything wrong with modern Labour leadership. When pressed by Meg Hillier about when households would actually see meaningful improvements in their daily lives, his response was a masterclass in political evasiveness that left viewers questioning whether he has any concrete plan at all. The exchange began with a simple question about timing. When would British families feel the real benefits of Labour's promised economic growth? Instead of providing a clear timeline, Starmer launched into a rambling response about living wage increases and public sector pay deals. He claimed 3 million of the lowest-paid workers were already feeling benefits, completely ignoring the crushing reality of inflation and rising costs that continue to devastate household budgets across the nation. His assertion that Labour had successfully resolved public sector strikes was particularly tone-deaf. Anyone following current events knows that disruption continues across essential services, with the NHS facing ongoing challenges and other sectors experiencing persistent unrest. Yet Starmer presented this as a clear victory, demonstrating a disconnect from reality that should concern every voter. The most revealing moment came when he stated that one of the biggest mistakes of the past 14 years was thinking everything could be fixed by Christmas. While acknowledging that change takes time is reasonable, using this as a blanket excuse for inaction reveals a fundamental lack of urgency. People struggling to pay bills and heat their homes need more than vague promises about future improvements. When challenged specifically about economic growth, Starmer's discomfort became even more apparent. Rather than outlining concrete policies or providing measurable targets, he fell back on citing forecasts from the OECD, IMF, and Bank of England. These weren't personal achievements or evidence of Labour's economic competence. They were external predictions that any government could reference to avoid accountability. His discussion of planning reform and regulation changes sounded impressive in theory, but lacked substance. What specific regulations would change? Which planning processes would be streamlined? How would these changes translate into tangible benefits for ordinary families? These crucial details were completely absent from his responses. The investment summit discussion proved most damaging to his credibility. Starmer proudly announced £63 billion in pledged investment, comparing it favorably to the previous year's $20 billion. However, when pressed about how much was genuinely new investment versus previously announced commitments, his answers became increasingly evasive. His claim that nearly all $63 billion represented new investment contradicted earlier admissions that some had been previously announced. This inconsistency on such a significant figure raised serious questions about his command of basic facts. How can someone aspiring to lead the country not know exactly what they're proposing to spend? If you're finding this analysis eye-opening, make sure to subscribe for more in-depth political coverage that cuts through the spin. The broader implications of this performance extend beyond one awkward interview. Starmer's responses revealed a party leadership that has become comfortable with mediocrity and excuses, rather than bold solutions and clear communication. His repeated references to the previous government's failures, while politically convenient, don't address current challenges or provide hope for future improvement. Labour under Starmer appears to have abandoned its traditional role as a force for transformative change. Instead, it has become a party of cautious incrementalism that struggles to articulate a compelling vision for Britain's future. This represents a fundamental shift from Labour's historical identity as champions of working families and bold social reform. The economic growth question exposed perhaps the deepest weakness in Starmer's approach. Growth isn't just about government spending or minimum wage increases. It requires creating conditions for business investment, innovation, and job creation. Yet his responses suggested a limited understanding of how these mechanisms actually work in practice. His reliance on forecasts rather than policy details indicated a reactive rather than proactive approach to economic management. Successful leaders don't just hope for growth based on external predictions. They create the conditions that make growth inevitable through strategic policy choices and clear implementation timelines. The prison discussion that followed provided another stark example of Labour's defensive posture. When confronted about dangerous conditions facing prison officers and privileges allegedly enjoyed by serious offenders, the response focused on blaming previous administrations rather than addressing immediate safety concerns. This pattern of deflection rather than action has become characteristic of Starmer's leadership style. every challenge becomes an opportunity to revisit past grievances rather than demonstrate current competence. This approach might work in opposition, but proves inadequate when governing requires decisive action and clear accountability. The fundamental question emerging from this exchange isn't about specific policies or timelines. It's about leadership itself. Can someone who struggles to provide clear answers to basic questions about their own proposals effectively guide a nation through complex economic and social challenges? Starmer's performance suggested someone more comfortable with process than results, more focused on managing expectations than exceeding them. This represents a concerning departure from the kind of transformational leadership that Britain needs during these challenging times. Effective political leadership requires the ability to inspire confidence through clear communication and concrete action plans. Unfortunately, this parliamentary exchange demonstrated neither quality, leaving serious doubts about Labour's readiness to govern effectively when the opportunity arises.